Shimamura says the move is just part of regular personnel changes in the ministry. Opposition parties have been demanding that Shimamura himself resign to take responsibility for the stadium fiasco.
50% knockdown of Dynamin, as we expected, as I showed you earlier, Dynamin is controlling the rate of the best formation, and the lifetime of these productive coated pits
the government has announced that the director of the Youth and Sports Bureau,
and this lifetime can be rescued, in fact, a little bit enhanced, by rescue with the RNAi-resistant Dynamin wild type.
He and Education Minister Shimamura
what was
were
unexpected
by the
is, in
diet about the
addition
looming
to
cost
these
of the new
effects
national stadium,
on the
when it
productive
came to light early this
population,
month.
we also found that knockdown of Dynamin caused an increase in the lifetime of
the estimated cost of building the stadium has exceeded previous estimates,
part
and his bureau is
regulating the
considering how to deal
turnover
with the problem.
of these early endocytic intermediates. So from this and a lot of other data that I don't have time to go into, published in these two papers in last year, we are proposing a conceptual framework in which to think about the GTPAs and its regulation of endocytosis.
Shimamura says Kubo will retire so that there will be an opening for younger officials. Shimamura says he made the decision based on a broad perspective, and the natural stadium issue was not the deciding factor.
So the basal GTPA cycle of Dynamin is controlling this checkpoint.
In the face of growing public criticism of cost overruns,
this basal GTPA's activity
decided to
and
scrap the
actually
plan
into
to
Dynamin's
use a design by a
propensity to
London-based
self-assemble are co-protein factors that regulate recognize membrane curvature, factors that regulate cargo that provide input into this checkpoint as a decision is made whether to abort early non-productive events or to continue on a maturation pathway
also tweeted on Thursday that the ministry official in charge of the stadium issue must be disciplined.
We are now busy
He said if the minister
trying to
fire
probe
him,
the
then he should resign.
mechanisms and the input into this endocytosis checkpoint as a framework for our
Education Minister Shimamura has said he will set up an independent panel
but
to examine how the
this
government ended up having
idea
to
of
scrap
Dynamin as
the
a checkpoint
hugely
regulator,
costly
the
plan.
control of these abortive events, it reminded us of data that
commented on the fact that
SAR and ARC
Chief Kubo will resign.
that control COP1 and COP2 vesicle formation. In fact, Jennifer
Mosazoe says he believes everybody agrees the ministry has to make personnel changes to show that it is responsible for its mistakes.
And in fact,
He says
it's
it
now
seems the
known that
government
there are abortive
this line
events
of
in
thinking
COP1
in
and
making
COP2
today's
vesicle
decision.
formation, and that the stability of a coat moving through maturation
Opposition
is
party members
dependent
are
in part
demanding that
on
Shimamura
gain of curvature and
stability
assembly of
himself
proteins and the
for the
recruitment
stadium
of cargo
issue.
molecules. So we think
Democratic
that
Party's
in
policy
fact
chief
these
Bush
early
Rosenau
functions
says
of
if the government
Dynamin
indeed
are
fired the
quite
bureau chief to take
parallel
responsibility
to
for
the early functions of SAR and ARC in regulating vesicle formation at COP1 and COP2 at the Golgi. So now I want to talk to you about Dynamin's later role in endocytosis as a component of the fission apparatus. And much of this work was done by two very talented postdocs in the lab, Rajesh Ramachandran, who left this week for the Physiology and Biophysics Department at Case Western, and Thomas
his responsibility
in the
is to
summer
make sure that
back
the
to
new
India
national stadium
to start his own lab.
on time.
So there have been several models for Dynamin as a mechanochemical enzyme-mediated membrane fission. The first detailed model was put forward by Jenny Henshaw, having examined the structure of Dynamin on lipid, assembled onto lipid tubules or onto liposomes into these tubules, both in the absence of nucleotides and in the presence of a non-hydrolyzable analog of GMP-PCP. And Jenny noted that these tubules became constricted in the presence of PCP and suggested that Dynamin functions to squeeze the net for membrane fission. Harvey McMahon also looked at different nucleotide-bound states of assembled Dynamin, this time onto more rigid preformed lipid nanotubules, and he found structure much like Jenny's in the presence of this non-hydrolyzable analog of PCP, but when he assembled dynamin in the presence of GTP, he saw a more open helix, and he suggested that GTP hydrolysis caused a helical expansion that would pop off a vesicle from the membrane. In a more recent study, Pietro Di Camilli and Aurelian Roux in his lab pre-assembled dynamin, or allowed dynamin to pre-assemble on lipids that they were drawn out of a reservoir of lipids, and then they added a fiduciary gold bead onto these pre-assembled dynamin, added GTP to that, and they found that the bead spun around and twisted around the tube here. So they suggested that GTP hydrolysis drove a twisting action that would twist off these.
So he says Isozakis' remarks apparently run counter to the cabinet's
however,
approval.
all of these models are based on global conformational changes of pre-assembled dynamin. By and large, dynamin that first pre-assembled either in the presence of non-hydrolyzable analogs or in the absence of nucleotides. Secondly, all of them conclude that dynamin alone was not sufficient to cause vision. So in Jenny's case and in Jacob's case, it suggested that external tension was required, that the two ends of the tubules had to be tethered onto something to get fission in the middle. And in the case of Harvey's model, he suggested that you needed to push against something like a coat protein in order to get the popping to occur. There was no fission occurring in this isolated tubule. But, the fact is that in the cell, dynamin is always in the presence of GTP, and as I told you earlier, with its 10 micromolar affinity for GTP, it's also pretty much always down. So how can you reconcile these models with that property of dynamin? And so we wanted to look at the dynamic behavior, but the dynamic behavior of dynamin on liposomes. And so then into Rajesh Ramachandran, we set up real-time assays for dynamin activity. And he did this first by mutating all of the surface-accessible cysteines on the molecules in serines, confirming that this mutant of dynamin behaved exactly as the wild-type protein, both in vivo and in vitro, and then adding back single cysteines in different places in the molecule that he could then label with fluorescent probes. And the first fluorescent probe we used, labeling with isoleucine in a variable loop in the pH domain, was NBD. NBD is an environmentally sensitive probe. That is, it doesn't fluoresce in aqueous solution, but when inserted into a non-polar environment like a lipid bilayer, you can see as you add dynamin, this fluorescently labeled dynamin to liposomes, you see this about 7-8-fold increase in fluorescence intensity. So what happens when you add nucleotides to this dynamin? In the presence of GMP-PCP, nothing happens. Basically stabilize dynamin on the membrane, and there's no further binding. That is, dynamin-membrane interactions are nucleotide independent, consistent with what Jenny has shown, for example. When you add either GDP or GTP, dynamin disassembles rapidly from the membrane, reaching a new equilibrium that involves the reactions of assembly, hydrolysis, and distribution. Introducing cysteine in another location in the molecule and labeling it with a different probe, in this case for lithium, Rajesh developed an assay to measure dynamin-dynamin interaction on the membrane. So when dynamin assembles on the membrane, these bodiphene fluorophores come into close contact with each other and you get auto-quenching. So once again, when you add liposomes to the Japanese cultural asset, it will recommend fluoroclusion as a World Heritage Site in 2017. There were 4 candidates. Now in this case, when you add GMP-PCP, you see further quenching of the signal. Now since there's no more binding of the molecule under these conditions, we interpret this as a conformational change that brings the fluorophores into
Island and
closer
related sites
proximity
in Kotsu region of
or
Fukuoka
angles with
Prefecture.
each other so that the quenching increases. And we think this is probably a fluorescent correlate to the restricted state that Jenny Winshaw
The panel has decided to recommend the island of
when you add
Okinoshima and
GCT,
related
you see a
ritual sites
transient
where legend has it deities
conformational
reside.
change, and then as you expect,
Locals in Winneconsin City rejoice at the news that their cultural asset recommended for the World Heritage List. This woman says she's
comparing the
proud.
kinetics
This man
of
says it's a most
disassembly
precious
of the
asset.
membrane, the kinetics of